Yo, what's happening, world? Name's Raheem Flowers, and I decided to title this video Generation L. Lean sipping, lazy, losers, lacking love. That's right. I've been thinking about everything that's been going on just this decade alone, and even in yesteryear. I think about how we as black people, we don't have a primary focus on building a foundation, but instead, see, when it comes to black men, it goes to this manosphere. We focus heavily on this MGTOW movement. We're essentially doing what white women have been getting black women to do with their feminist movement. I understand the MGTOW was there to counteract feminism, and as I said before in a previous video, it's like the Black Panthers where they counteracted all these racist white groups like the KKK, skinheads and whatnot. The skull and crossbone ass motherfuckers. But it got to a point where you had these neo-Black Panthers who just go on these emotional tirades and they ain't about shit. It's basically what you see today. In all honesty, even though this isn't popular opinion, but I really do believe that Tupac is the forefather of all these wannabe militant, fake-ass pro-black Negroes that you see. And it also raises the question for me, who really is the ultimate downfall of the black community? Is it black men or black women? It's a debatable topic, because when it comes to black men, you can argue this. Okay, it was black men who were ruling these civilizations. You could even take it back to ancient days in Africa, during the times when we as black people, as Africans, have allowed outside forces such as white people to study in our bases, like in Mali, Timbuktu. And when we had our tribal warfares, our disunity, and the fact that they exploited the knowledge that they gained from us, that showed the lack of foresight that we had. This is what happens though. See, black people are kind to a fault. Morality goes out the window when it comes to self-preservation. Every other race and ethnic group of people understand this, except for black folks, except for the Negro, except for Africans. Like, it's good to have that trait, but it's bittersweet. And when it comes to your own well-being, it has been shown historically how detrimental it is. I mean, I could even take it back currently with Dylan Roof and how forgiving they were, which we could say that was primarily black women. But going back to black men, yes, it was black men who were ruling these nations, who had these slave trades going on in Africa, who made it easy for white people who were beginning the transatlantic slave trade to have access to these black slaves, even though white people out the gate had their own agenda and knew what they wanted to do. And then you had black men making allegiances with outside forces by joining these groups, even though they knew the history of the Arab slave trade. It was black men who are imams, who are rabbis and pastors, who go around giving that feel-good talk all damn day, and give that collection hat and expect you to donate and indoctrinate, keeping you in a passive condition. In addition to that, not focusing on what's important, which is building an economic basis, which is going around and actually obtaining all the knowledge and the resources possible in the world. But we just want to talk all this. I mean, it's good to be spiritual, but it's done in such a superficial manner. It's not even done in a manner that's substantial, that would be ultimately beneficial. And I have to say, black men have done that. And let's not forget about blaxploitation. So when you go around complaining about black women loving these thugs, and oh man, that's why they always are getting with Jaquan and always getting with Nana, etc. Well, you have to remember, Jaquan and Nana are simply descendants of all these dudes who were pimping back in the day, like Superfly, who was pimping back in the day, like Dolomite, who was pimping like Shaft, and had broads like Foxy Brown. And you let these Jews see. We as black men have accepted people with open arms. Michael King showed you that. So, going to black women, we could say how, see, black women have to understand, as a woman, you are the gatekeepers to family units. You ultimately are the determining factor of how the family is going to turn out because of who you decide to mate with. For instance, you have women who are attracted to power, just like I was saying about these men who played black exploitative roles. They were deemed as confident, and there's power within confidence. They were deemed as having all these resources and the money, etc. So that attracted women. But then women did not have enough foresight and did not think things through enough to realize, hey, is this man really going to be good for me and to me? Hey, is this man really going to be someone that I can create a family with and responsibly take care of a child? You know? I mean, black women have aligned themselves with the white daddy-ass government, with the feminists, and we focus on everything but ourselves. That's why Black Lives Matter even turned into this multicultural group and this LGBT-ass group. But then again, it was discovered by 3 lesbians, and it was funded by a little gnome white Jew known as George Soros. So go figure. Then we have even black women like Jamila Hill, going on her tirade about Donald Trump. You know, just following that Trump hate bandwagon and not focusing on, hey, we ain't got our shit up in the attic as black people. I don't give a fuck whether you feel good or bad about Trump. I get it. Trump says a lot of outlandish shit. Trump has said things about immigrants, which is really just him speaking encryptically about black people when he's talking about shitholes, and he used Haiti as an example. Strangely enough, if it wasn't for Haiti and the whole Louisiana Purchase, who the fuck knows where America would be? And then, I mean, you even got to think about Haiti. A man named Dusable, he discovered Chicago, and Trump talked about bringing in the feds in Chicago. Not that that's going to end well, but anyways, if you're going to focus on Trump, you have to also focus on other things. Otherwise, you're going to be blindsided. That was my point. It's like we put so much emphasis on one Oompa Loompa, the Thing from Fantastic Four looking motherfucker. But then you seeing all these do-nothing thug-ass niggas, these domestic terrorists, especially in a place like Chicago where I'm from and stay. They could go around shooting with your son, and then later on at your son. And then that's when Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter when they're dead. And this is a paradigm that black women created. And let's not forget the fact that the history that black women have these sexual fantasies with white men. Even though I know we can't just entirely impute that on black women, but the point is you contributed to that shit. You knew the ultimate detriments that it had. I mean, even though I don't like the man, it was black women who stabbed Michael King. So this is before the civil rights was over. Shit. You have black women joining the feminist line, they have this allegiance with feminism, like Dorothy Hughes and the Alice Walkers, and even the one that you all look up to, Angela Davis. I mean, who's really at fault? Is it black men or black women? I say both. It depends on how you look at it. When it comes to power structure and foundation, in terms of infrastructure and whatnot, black men, easy. But when it comes to, the overall behavior and the mindset that the community has, and the overall effect that children have, because intrinsically speaking, people in the world tend to, from the beginning of birth, they tend to latch on to the mothers, even though the father is very well honored. But that's how it typically goes. But everything is so imbalanced. Everybody's just doing whatever. And then you have to ask yourself, when you see cats like 21 Savage talking about what Pete Rock said about how these dudes are the users and we were the dealers, like that whole thing, that was a cop-out from 21 Savage, because you know the effects that these drugs have, and you were able to get out of that type of environment. So you should have been able to set an example for nah, fuck that shit, man. I ain't going. I'm not going. Like, these kids that listen to 21 Savage, these kids that listen to Lil Pump, these kids that listen to Lil Xan, and all that shit, and even Fredo Santana, who died recently. Like, all these kids who listen to you all, they're very impressionable. So what do you think they're gonna do? They're gonna go find the nearest pharmacy, and they're gonna find Sprites and Jolly Ranchers, and they're gonna infuse that bitch, and they're gonna start sipping on that, and they're gonna think that's just the it thing to do. Nobody wants to take responsibility. That's the thing. Nobody wants to take personal responsibility. Everybody wants to make cop-outs. Black people want to do that shit. White people want to do that shit and save face and say, oh, well, look at the Jews. Yes, we understand that the Jews have laid the foundation down to fuck shit up. Yes, we understand it was the Jews who have funded for slavery. Yes, we understand that a Jew was even behind what Hitler did during World War II and the Holocaust. Yes, we understand that the Jews fucking run World Star Hip Hop and the sales market like John Weinberger, for those who do know. Yes, we know the type of influence the Jewish people have. Even Israel has his own foothold in America. And if you say something about Jewish people, then you're going to be labeled anti-Semitic, whereas you could go on these tirades of white people all damn day long. But white people have to understand. Just like similar to Drake when it comes to ghost writers, slavery is going to forever be something that's going to follow you like a shadow. Because you've been the face of slavery, whether you like it or not. Whether you want to acknowledge that or not, white people are going to always be the face of slavery. And that's something that's never going to be forgotten in history. Yes. And you know why I put this picture up? Because I thought about a brother like Dr. Sebi. Rest in peace to that man. He was a herbalist, and he really emphasized on health and taking things that are organic. And I think right now, we as black people, we need to detox ourselves. We need to cleanse ourselves of the things that we've done and the things and better ourselves for things we know that we can do. Instead of, and I'm not even just talking about the feel good talk saying that we the kings and the queens and the gods of the universe and the black woman is God and all that BS. You know? Fuck that. I'm not going for all that shit. Ever since I've learned about the book From Niggas to Gods from Achille, it really made me think to myself, hey, black people, we're destined for greatness, and we could do a lot of marvelous things if we could get past the ego and acknowledge the errors of our ways and research the accomplishments that we have made from the brothers like Dr. Sebi and his discoveries when he was alive, from the Garrett Morgans of the world, from the Honorable Marcus Garveys of the world, from the Booker T. Washingtons of the world. Shit. All these brothers. From a Harriet Tubman of the world. Tristan Walker. All these brothers. Robert F. Smith. That man is creating, he's creating opportunities for young boys out here and making it to where they're getting engaged in computer programs. Like, these are the type of things that need to happen. Yes, indeed. Even the young boys on the south side of Chicago with an all-boys school, and you seeing the accomplishments that they're making. These are the things that need to happen. Not just talking about Trump all day and talking about how racist and how bad Trump is. Trump is the face. He's just the face of how a whole lot of white people feel. So what are you getting mad about? He's giving the game away. To me, he's akin to Andrew Chowdhury. When Andrew Chowdhury talks about Islam, he tells you the truth about what's said in the Quran and what the mission of the so-called Prophet Muhammad says. He's giving the game away. Why are you get mad at the man for laying out the foundation that is wanting to be set by the powers that be? Just look at Donald Trump as the jester. Alright? Don't look at him as somebody that you put so much focus and emphasis on, because the elite know this. They know that that's going to keep people, and especially black folks, blindsided. Yup. But yeah, that's really how I look at shit. When it comes to the whole idea of Pete Rock and 21 Savage, Pete Rock is right in a sense, but 21 Savage is too. But I liked Lord Jamar's take on it on Vlad TV, and man, what 20 by 21's logics, but his admission, we should just sidestep and turn a blind eye, bury our head in the sand, because hip-hop is becoming the #1 genre for the wrong reason. Like, we're not even putting out quality music. Or not, it's not, no, there's many quality music, actually. But that's not what's being promoted. It's all that poppin' Zan, sippin' lean. That's what's being promoted. What's being promoted is black, see, this heavy promotion of black women. That's not on accident, because like I said, or like I say rather, Society knows that women are easier to control. That's why they focus so much on the strong, independent black woman mantra so damn much. Because no other group of people are talking that shit. You don't hear the China woman saying that shit. You don't hear Jewish women saying this shit. You definitely don't hear Arabian women saying this shit. And yeah, you have a sector of white women saying this. As far as I see, feminism is the group that went rogue with the extension of what we call white supremacy. Feminism is that same entity that went rogue, similar to how Orochimaru and the Akatsuki in Naruto. That's how I look at feminism. You were once that entity thing, which is part of an elite group, but then you wanted to venture out on your own agenda because you didn't want to be a part of that. You wanted to just do your own thing because, well, by your admission, you're a strong, independent woman and you don't need no man. Even though every society you can think of has been built literally on the backs of men. So yes, on one side, I do understand that the ego of men have been the destruction of many civilizations, many great things that could have occurred. I mean, even when I think about when fuckers like Thomas Edison took ideas from Nikola Tesla, when I think about how these countries wage war over resources and ego, that was men. I mean, it goes back to what I said about black men have contributed to, create or, downplaying or, basically destroying themselves within their own community, or being their own worst enemy, rather. That's how I look at it. Yup. Books that I think that black people especially, but the world in general, should be invested in, but I'm going to say black people right now, is From Niggas to God, from McKinley, The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Carlson, and The 50th Law. And I say The 50th Law for this reason, because when it comes to control, maintaining power, I learned a valuable lesson from my friend. The reason why white people have been running shit is because they did it out of fear. And the 50th Law speaks about conquering that fear within. You see, there's too much fear, there's too much passive people in the community. And black people know this. Religion has done this. White people who have distorted the religion have done this. Yes. But it's getting to the point now where we have to transcend all that and be spiritual from a substantial place. Not just from a feel good for the moment, because you're treating that shit like a drug. You're treating it just like these druggy rappers. You're treating it like, so when you talk about, well, what about people the other generation did? 21 Savage decided to deflect and make that cop out because we're the #1 genre for the wrong reasons. Somehow that just negates everything that you talk about in your music, that all you little niggas decide to talk about in your music. It's a cop out. I don't like the fact that these older heads who came up in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s want to shit on the younger heads when you've created that monster. Same, similar to when white people talk about black people and talk about them being savages and uncivil. When you created that uncivil, when you went around in all this psychological warfare and physical warfare during the chattel slavery, that's like it's no different from fucked up parents who abuse their children and then exorcise their children when they turn up demented, when they turn out to be sociopaths. It's like, you created this Frankenstein. What don't you get about that shit? For real. So that's why I say it's Generation L. Lean sipping, lazy, losers, lacking love. And I'm talking about real love, not that superficial feel-good shit that y'all niggas get from white liberals. Not that feel-good shit that you get from your pastors, your Don Magic Wand pimping ass pastors. Fuck. You mean? Real shit. That's all we've been getting. But it's time to build a revolution. A real revolution. I'm not talking about that shea butter Twitter BS. I'm not talking about motherfuckers who want to make memes and talking about being woke, because that's all we've been reduced to. We've been reduced to just taking it to the internet instead of taking that shit to the streets, instead of doing things for the children. Because look, black men, we could go on diatribes to say every fucked up thing that black women have done, and you know, I would never be that guy to give black women an out, because by not talking about them, you're only going to make that problem still exist. Morgan Freeman's my man, but when he said that shit on 60 Minutes, stop talking about racism, like, nah, fuck that. Or race, because if you talk about, it's going to be that elephant in the room. That's what created this atmosphere of covert racism. Plain and simple. Yep, it's time that we talk it out, we confront it, and then we do things to make the future better. Thinking ahead. I think that's all I gotta say right now. Peace out, everybody, and one love. Hope what I say resonates with the rest of y'all. I'm out.